As Ernest Holmes says, he still says it, through many of us, love alone can overcome fear because love surrenders itself to the object of its adoration. The soul must make a complete surrender of itself to the spirit. It is as simple as that, right? Today, we're speaking about entering a new season of love, and this is in alignment with the Centers for Spiritual Living theme for the month of September, which is to ensure the stewardship of our planet, and the value of the month is love. It is from love that we do everything we do that is effective in our own lives and in the world. That is the motivating power. And in surrendering to the greatness that is within and all around us, we enter into that love. A few weeks ago, I shared with you a poem I grew up with that someone in our center in Redondo Beach gave to me, and I had it up on the wall. And it's simply, power divine, the sunrise gloweth bright, I rise to do thy will. If the love that kept me through the passive night can guide and keep me still, fear cannot enter where the love divine doth ever dwell. The power and the strength alone are thine, and thou doest all things well. The weight of a decision unto me does not belong. I look alone to thee, and in thy strength am strong. The power of love alone the world can sway. God shall prevail. If naught but love reign in my heart today, nothing I do can fail. Everything we do then succeeds. That has been a centering focus for me all my life. And I remember that everything dissolves into this beautiful solution of love. Love is the solution. Then the rest of it hardly matters at all. What we get our knickers in a knot about sometimes suddenly seems less important, unimportant, because love is always the answer. It isn't always easy to get to that place, but there are ways that we can do it. Now we have both the love and the law. And remember, Ernest Holmes said, court the presence, which is the love, and direct the law. It is when we are absolutely at one, consciously, subconsciously, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, absolutely at one with that great loving presence, which we call God, which we call love, which we call wisdom, which we call many different names, but it's the same thing. It's a divine energy. When we feel our unity with us, then we can direct the law of mind for wonderful purposes in our own lives, in our communities, and ultimately in the world itself. First, we need to be centered in that love. We understand, and we become, here's an old-fashioned word for you that just came through me in my meditation this morning. It was obedience. Don't you just love that? It's a little bit like discipline. And I'll explain to you why both of these words are very valuable to me. Discipline, it comes from the word disciple, right? And you know that discipline is, say it with me if you remember it, loving yourself enough to do what is good for you. And when I know that there is a center within me and within each one of us, which is the divine expression of infinite life itself, I wish to be a disciple to that loving presence. I wish to be obedient to that love which says, let go of that other stuff, Maxine. It really doesn't have anything to do with your life, and it's making you miserable, so just stop it. Have you ever said to yourself, this conversation in my head has got to stop, right? And that's when we become obedient to the loving presence that's within us. We also need to be obedient to the natural laws, right? If I'm a farmer, I want to make sure that the soil is appropriate and that I'm planting the right seeds at the right time of year so that they'll come up and I'll have a healthy harvest. I need to be obedient to the law. See, isn't it changing a little bit? It's a little bit softer. It's okay to be obedient. Well, I'm not going to ask you to do that. Certainly not to your spouse. No, in fact, I have done so many weddings over the 42 years I've ministered, and I have never, ever, and nor will I ever, ever ask somebody to obey another person. Other people are not meant to be obeyed. I want to get that clear right now, okay? What is to be obeyed is that loving instinct within us that says, let me guide you. Let me lead you. Let me open up the way for you. Let's listen deeply to that spiritual presence within, which guides us through all the seasons of our lives as well. There's a natural law, so many natural laws, but the one that we focus upon and teach about here primarily is the law of sowing and reaping. And the master teacher Jesus had so many beautiful parables about sowing and reaping because it was an agrarian society. They understood this. We understand it too. The children know this. They plant seeds, sometimes in little pots, and they watch the flowers of the plants grow. It helps them understand that the seed thoughts that they are planting also come up in a healthy harvest if they're planting healthy seed ideas and feelings. The children can teach us this. They learn it every Sunday in Fun Day School. Don't you wish you had had a Fun Day School? Okay, well, stay down here if you would, because this is where I want you to be. So we see how the universe works. We see how the cycles work. This is Equinox. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to realize that we move through the seasons in our world. We move through the seasons of our hearts. We move through the seasons of our lives. And the balm of love, B-A-L-M, thank you, the balm of love invites this gentle transition, and it can be a gentle transition of the new season because it also supports all the changes in our lives. Someone once said, and I don't know who it was, or I would be happy to cite him or her, autumn shows how beautiful it is to let things go. Autumn shows how beautiful it is to let things go. This is a time where we get to look at the trees letting things go. Even those little resistant ones. You know, there's always one on the tree that hangs there, and the wind is blowing, and it goes, I ain't going. I've been here a long time, I ain't going. Have you noticed sometimes we have a little resistant thought or feeling that says, not going to let this one go, not after what she said to me, right? It's time to let it go. You're going to feel so much better when you do. I know that I do when I finally let it go. Because it has no basis in truth. It has nothing to do with what makes our lives move forward effectively, successfully, and lovingly. So when the trees drop their leaves, they're showing us how we can release what's no longer needed or wanted. Anybody got an old resentment or regret? Okay. Oh, yeah, right. Okay, so we're going to be trees today. And we're going to think about, if you wish, about those few things that we've not yet been willing to say, this is ridiculous, that I have had this fuss with my cousin for 16 years, and I don't even remember what started it. So I'm willing to just release it. How are we going to do that? Sometimes it's easier said than done, and sometimes it's easy. Just do it, you know? When I come to that centered place, which I love to do as often as possible, whether I'm calling it meditation or contemplation or just finding those sacred moments. Isn't it wonderful to look through your day and enter into sacred moments as often as possible? It doesn't have to be sitting in the ashram, although that's nice too. It can be looking at something beautiful as you're walking along a forest path, or looking at someone beautiful when you're looking at somebody that you love. That can be a sacred moment too. And when we allow our hearts to fill up with that joy of loving, it becomes easier at that time to say, oh, wait a minute, there was something I want to let go of. I think this is a good time to do it. When I'm feeling that sacred connection, that's a good time to let it go. And it's an amazing thing. When we do that, even if that cousin is 400 miles away, you might be surprised at what can happen after that. Not only are you free of it and just loving that person, you could get a note or a phone call. Have any of you ever had that happen? Where you've done your work and then suddenly you get a response from someone that you now love, truly love, because you see that that person is a beautiful expression of the divine, and that through all of the external stuff that may have been in the way, there is that divine quality, and it's somebody you can't help but love. Whether or not you get that response, the important part is you've cleared it out. And what happens then is that you have more room in your heart and in your soul and in your mind for loving experiences to take place and happy people to show up in your world. How about any regrets? Anybody ever have any regrets? Gee, if I'd only... Do you know how futile that is? Do you know how counterproductive it is? Because if I'm pulling the past into this powerful moment of now, I'm tainting this powerful moment of now. And I'll be creating things in my future that had more to do with the past, than what even inanimate objects need to be apologized to every now and then. Sorry. That if I am bringing some negative feeling from the past into this moment, I'm not going to have a nice, fresh future, a beautiful, inspired tomorrow. I'll be bringing more of yesterday into it, and that is just not what I choose to do. So, any regrets? Let's release those. More. Can you think about things that you'd like to let go of? Sorrows. The if-onlys. Well, we have some forgiveness work to do. Do you know that many of us find that the forgiveness work that first needs to be done has to do with ourselves? You know that wonderful Hawaiian practice? Oponopono? How many of you are familiar with that? It's very wonderful, and I'm going to reintroduce it. We haven't talked about it for a while. Oponopono means to make right. The traditional Hawaiians believe that all life is connected. Have you heard that? Is that a familiar concept to you? All life is connected. And that by practicing Ho'oponopono, we heal ourselves, we heal others, and we heal our environment. And they wish to live life in Pono. If you live your life in Pono, then you're in balance with all things in life. You're in balance with yourself. You're in balance with other people. Remember, we talked, was it last week? We talked about how the love continues to flow, but we are the ones who from time to time stop the flow, like the water flowing through the hose. We step on it, and we put a kink in it, and it's not flowing through. It's not that there isn't any love. It's that I have prevented it from coming into my experience. That's a wonderful realization. So I want to take my foot off the hose. And this Ho'oponopono is a wonderful way to take my foot off the hose. And it has 4 ingredients. Remember what they are? If you do, say it with me. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. How simple is that? How easy? Well, that'll be up to each of us, won't it? It's a sure path to love. It will unkink the hose. Let's say it again, shall we? I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Now, you may not love what somebody did, but the more you hold on to what somebody did that you don't love, the more unhappy you'll be, the more you'll be kinking your hose, and the less love you'll experience. Now, that just doesn't make sense to me. I like feeling loved, loving, and feeling the essence of love itself, don't you? So why don't we do that more? We just forgot. We want to live more in Pono. The more we evolve spiritually, and that's not a loosey-goosey kind of airy-fairy up in the sky kind of thing. We are evolving spiritually. It's a real thing. It's something that humankind has done since it showed up on the earth. We've been learning to master what we need to master to make things work well here for our lives on the planet. And we are evolving spiritually. We are awakening to the truth that we are all connected. That's a beautiful realization. And if we'll stop and think throughout the day, what am I thinking right now? Am I feeling connected to everyone? Or am I feeling somehow shut out or shut off? Or I'm only doing this all by myself? We aren't doing anything by ourselves. We're not breathing by ourselves. We're not telling our hearts to beat. We don't know how to do that. There's an infinite intelligence at work in this universe, and it's at work in our bodies. It's at work in our minds. It's at work in our emotions. And that is how we are becoming more spiritually evolved. And the more evolved we become, the more we care about ourselves, the more we care about each other, the more we care about our environment. We're moving into a new season. As we move into this new season and let it be a season of love, we're going to find more ways to care about ourselves, each other, and our planet. That was a beautiful song that we sang about. It really is about the maternal aspect, the nurturing, creative aspect of God. And you know, the ancient Greeks, you knew that was going to come up, didn't you? The ancient Greeks had a lot of gods, right? And one of them was Demeter. And Demeter was the goddess of fruitfulness of the earth and the harvest. That was her main job. And when her beloved daughter Persephone was taken from her because the god Hades, who was down there in the underworld, but he loved her and he wanted her to come and be his queen. It's not a bad job to be the queen of the underworld. But her mother was, you know, I guess. I've never tried it. But Persephone was out with her friends and she found this beautiful flower, and it was the way that Hades got her to come down and join him, and he got her to eat 6 pomegranate seeds. If you ever visit the underworld, don't eat anything, because you have to stay there then. If you don't eat, you're better off. So that's just a little hint from Heloise. So there she is in the underworld, and her mother, Demeter, is distraught. She doesn't know where she is. She doesn't know that Zeus and Hades had this all planned. He'd okayed the marriage. They didn't ask her about it. Well, Demeter, you know what she did when her daughter was lost to her and she didn't know where she was? She shut down the harvest. There was nothing more growing in the earth. We need that nurturing, loving, maternal presence to grow things. And you don't want to tick her off. So they finally made a deal. They let her know where she was, and they finally worked it out so that Persephone spent 6 months with her husband, reigning in the underworld. It's a good place. It's an important place. Visiting might be better than living there, but then other places are too. And then the other 6 months, she was up here on the top of the earth. So this is spring. This is spring returning. So again, it's the natural flow of the seasons, and we enter into that wonderful, wonderful energy of the caring and the nurturing, and we have our part in that. It's a beautiful thing to be a part of the co-creation of this universe. We are all a part of it. We all have our nurturing to do, and we can nurture because we are first nurtured from diving deeply into that well of the living waters of spirit. We want to honor International Peace Day as well. And the Science of Mind archives have invited all of us today who wish to do so to read and to take to heart and to share Dr. Ernest Holmes' prayer for world peace. Would you like to hear it? Me too. I know there is but one mind, which is the mind of God, in which all people live and move and have their being. I know there is a divine pattern for humanity, and within this pattern there's infinite harmony and peace, cooperation, unity, and mutual helpfulness. I know that the mind of each person, being one with the mind of God, shall discover the method, the way, and the means best fitted to permit this to occur. I know that deep within every person, the divine pattern of perfect peace is already planted. I'm going to say that again, and let's all really listen to this and believe it. I know that deep within every person, the divine pattern of perfect peace is already implanted. I now declare that in each person and in leaders of thought everywhere, this divine pattern moves into action and into form to the end that all nations and all people shall live together in peace, harmony, and prosperity forever. So it is now. That is an image, that is a vision that we are empowered to maintain. And we must do so rather than drag the past or anything that's happening currently in our world into our imagination, because the imagination is the creative aspect that the divine uses and that we use as co-creators, and we maintain the vision of peace. It is the loving thing to do as we enter into this new season of love. We have the capacity because we're created from the one divine energy, the one perfect life of the divine. So we're moving from limitation to freedom, from the lesser to the greater, from fear to love. I, the imperfect, adore my own perfect. Will you say that with me? I, the imperfect, adore my own perfect. I live in harmony with life. I live in Pono. I flow gracefully through each season of my heart. I treasure my oneness with all. And so, my beloveds, beginneth our lesson.